in the stand very long before this doe come slipping through, heading to the bed area, which is about 40 yards to my left. I look up a few minutes later, and here comes this little half spike, whatever you want to call him. He got like a fork on one side, nothing on the other. I don't see anything. He was a grunting, very hopeful, thinking he might get lucky. Gets a little bit close to the bed area, and it's pretty obvious by the way he's acting. He doesn't want to go in there. There's a bigger buck than him living in that bed area. I didn't get it on film, but shortly after this spike eased off, that same doe, I'm assuming it was the same doe, blew out of that bed area. When she come out of that bed area, she ran the opposite way from me, so I could hear the grunting footsteps coming out of the bed area. I knew a buck must be tending to her or checking on her, and as soon as that buck stuck his head out of that thicket, I took one look at it. I saw he was a good rack buck, and I snapped a limb as loud as I could, a cedar limb. Made a lot of racket. He snapped his head around, looked in my direction. He obviously thought he heard the doe, and this is what happens next. Looking back at the film, it's obvious the deer took a step forward right when I released the arrow, and I hit him far back. I'm watching the deer right now. I'm going to try to grunt to him and get him to stop and stand there for a while, see how he reacts. Sometimes it'll hold them there just a little bit longer and give you a better idea of the hit. Well, I made a absolute terrible shot on a buck. I can still see the arrow sticking out of his butt as he's walking off. There's a femoral artery there. If I hit that artery, he's going to bleed pretty good. I've got really good blood right here where he stopped, and I'm going to just go slow and easy, methodical, glass ahead when I can, and see if I can't find this buck. I said on film my arrow hit a limb, but looking at the footage, I really think the deer just took a step forward right when I released. Truth is, I'm not sure. This deer's bleeding good enough to follow, but I'm afraid I just jumped him, and he looked like he was hurt pretty bad. I'm gonna just keep pushing him so he'll bleed, because if he lays down, it could clot up. And I don't know. The arrow's still in him. I hadn't found the arrow yet. I finally get up there close enough. I've actually spotted him on the ground. You see me zoom in, zoom out, actually trying to find the buck in the viewfinder, but it's so thick in there, it's really hard to see the deer. But he's laying there. He's still awake, still alive. He's flopping around trying to get that arrow. You'll hear a little thump every once in a while. That's him trying to kick around and get that arrow out of him. Each time he turns his head around trying to get the arrow out, I try to take a step forward. Sorry, buddy. I'm so sorry. Put you through that. The spot I was hunting. This was my #1 pick on the map, topo map. This used to be a green field. And this is a deer bed there. And you can see there's just trails galore in here. This is what the green field turned into. It is just growed up, head high briars, bushes, sage grass. Perfect bed habitat for a bigger buck. And I keyed in on this pretty much the first day me and Mike coming in and scouted. We found some really good rubs. In that back corner over yonder, I videoed a really nice buck coming out and making a scrape and rub and showing his dominance. And then this is the third trip hunting this spot, I think. My days are getting mixed up now, but you could tell this joker's got all this matted down where he's been laying in here. There he is, boys and girls. My first Kentucky buck. Took me 5 days to get him. Big body deer. I'm used to shooting deer a lot smaller body wise than this deer here. But he got a lot of character in that antler. That old knot there, and crooked antler there. I like the way it turns and curls back in. I hate I made a bad shot on him, but I'm glad I got my buck. That's a pretty buck. You know, we do everything we possibly can to make that perfect shot, but sometimes things just have a way of happening. After things settled down, these does started filtering up through here, coming out of their bed area around this little gap I call the pinch point, which is exactly where I hope the buck will come through. I've got a shooting lane a little bit to the left. This doe is going to walk through it here in a little bit. I know it looks pretty thick, but there's little openings and little holes I can squeeze an arrow through. This doe's really close, and I felt like I could make a shot through that stuff should a buck come up through there checking them out. Right at dark, this joker comes up, and there he is. I call him the Brute. He's a stud. I'm trying to get my voice to act right a little bit. Call him to me because he is not going to come on the same trail the does came on. I'm trying my best to look for a shot anywhere in there that I can stick an arrow through any hole I could possibly find. There's no way to get a shot on this deer. And it's very thick behind me too, so I was hoping maybe I could coax him into circling around, coming through an opening to check me out. Later I got this smaller buck coming through. Obviously it's going to give me the perfect shot, it being a smaller buck. Too bad the big one wouldn't have come through these openings like the small buck did. close at the mass on this deer. I believe this deer might push in the 140s, possibly 150s with all that mass. I really wanted this buck. He evaded me the whole season. First thing this morning, my son has a Pope and Young buck coming by. Not even good video light yet.
Meh. Meh. Meh.
Unfortunately, he hits a limb with his arrow and misses the deer clean. And of course, later that morning, the smaller buck comes right up under his stand, giving him all kinds of good shot opportunities. That's usually the way it works. This little buck kind of smelt Matthew's ground scent, but he's got other things on his mind, such as does, so doesn't seem too concerned about the ground scent. Our setup in this scenario is he is between two old growed up fields. They used to be planted in soybeans last year, but now that everything down there is growed up. This is his afternoon setup, and he saw possibly another Pope and Young buck. Tries to call him over to him. As you can see, that's what all the fields look like. This one's actually probably the lowest in height of all the fields around and the most active for deer densities. That's not a bad looking buck for an Alabama boy. We ain't used to seeing bucks that size. Kinda got a messed up left rack, but I think Matthew would have been happy putting his tag on this deer. Scouting my way into this spot, I found an acorn tree just off of doe bedding. I figured these bucks would skirt the edge, maybe even pick up an acorn or two on their way checking these does. And sure enough, just about 40-50 yards out, a really nice buck starts skirting through. I'm going to try to call him to me.
Eh. 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 Eh.
With bucks cruising like that, you have to get their attention. Sometimes they just won't stop and come to the first grunt call you throw at them, but if you can get their interest and make them turn, shut up, they're coming. can see a hole right behind the front shoulder on this deer where that arrow went through, and I'm watching blood drip on the ground as he's standing there. So I'm thinking, I want to get this on video, him falling over dead. I'm just trying to find him in the viewfinder right now. A 2x3-inch viewfinder can be difficult. So he stands there long enough, I'm thinking, I'll put another arrow in him. Now I just watched that arrow go right through double lung, and that arrow's on the ground saturated in blood. He's standing there now just pouring blood out. Huge puddle. I'm going to put a third arrow in this deer because he's still standing. I'm waiting for him to kind of turn his head so I can draw without getting busted. Still want to be careful. I'm going to squat down in my tree stand a little bit low to shoot under the leaves. Hopefully get it on video.
That's 3 arrows in that deer. All 3 in the boiler room. There's 3 arrows in that deer. All 3 of them double lung shots. And that deer's still standing on its feet. You have got to be kidding me. I have never in my life seen anything like this.
That is without a doubt the craziest thing I've ever had happen to me. I seen him coming. He was kind of walking fast. The time I got my bow up, got the camcorder turned on, I had a shooting lane, but he kind of walked through it. So I got nothing to lose. I grunted. First couple of times he didn't hear me, and then he heard me. He may have heard me the second and the third time. He flicked his tail, looked my way, took a couple of steps like he was going to go that way, and then just kind of turned and come right up here. Gave me about a 10-yard shot. Got a pass-through shot. Got hair and blood on the ground right there. Looked like a good shot. Made a couple, 2 or 3 hops, stopped, gave me a
18-yard shot. Good shot. I got a lot of blood where he was standing right there. My arrow, I could see it, it's blood soaked. He hopped 2 or 3 more hops, stopped, stood there. I got another arrow out. I shot him a third time. There is a huge puddle of blood over there where he stood on the third shot. And he walked off. He ran a few steps, stopped again, and just steady walked off. He, I guess, 5 minutes stood over there. I watched him with the binos. He flicked his tail several times, which is a dead giveaway that he's dying, and just walked off. Real slow, real steady. I never heard him lay down. I never heard him crash. Been about 30 minutes. I'm going to ease down out of my tree stand while I still got good daylight. Very slow. Going to get my arrows, collect them all up, and start the blood trail. Real slow. Get my binos ahead of me. All 3 of them arrows went right through double lung. There's no way that deer's still alive. I've never had a deer do this. That is one tough dude. Folks, y'all ain't gonna believe this. I went and picked my son up. We got the flashlights, roll of toilet paper. We took off down to the woods where I'd shot this deer. Started blood trailing, plenty of blood, puddles of blood, walking real easy, not hard to follow at all. Walk up on a deer bed where he lay down, saturated in blood. This deer got up and walked, and we blood trailed another 75 yards, got out into a log road, and he was walking right down this old growed up log road. We're following along behind him, but we don't know it. I shine the light ahead of him, and about 25 yards in front of us is standing this deer on his feet, looking at us. I kid you not, this deer is still on his feet. He made 2 or 3 hops, got behind some brush. Me and Matthew, we just turned the lights out and just stood there real quiet and listened to this deer walk off through the woods. He said, "Dad, what are we going to do?" I said, "We got to back out. We can't follow this deer if he's on his feet." He laid down once. He'll lay down again. It's going to be cold tonight. We'll come back in the morning. We'll find this deer. Well, I'm on blood. But it's in these red, yellow, and maple leaves, and they got red spots everywhere, and it's getting hard to find and stay on blood. But I'm going to find this deer, I hope.
Matthew sent me a text earlier saying that the buck got by him and he wasn't able to get a shot off, but he apparently grunted this buck back to him and is going to attempt to make a shot on him. The buck seems a little nervous and he's trying to draw his bow back on the buck, but sometimes when they're this close you have to learn to draw your bow back slow and deliberately without making a lot of noise. He makes a great shot on this deer. It runs off. You heard that bow make that clicking noise. That's actually that camcorder mounted on a side bracket on his bow. It's got a spring-loaded mechanism, and when he draws the bow back, it has a stop at the end of the wall on the draw length, and when it does that, it makes that click noise. And that buck heard that noise, looks up at him, and causes him to kind of rush his shot a little bit. A lot of times after a shot, I'll take my binoculars and try to look at the arrow on the ground around it to kind of get an indicator of the hit.
That's the tree I was in. Buck was standing on the other side of that dead cedar tree yesterday when I shot and missed him. Today he came off the hill, worked his way behind me, and headed out towards that big field over there. I grunted a few times. He didn't seem like he was interested at the time. It seemed like he kept walking. About 5 minutes later, he had turned and was heading straight towards me. I couldn't see him anymore. He just kind of reappeared back under my stand.
Matthew said he had pretty good blood on the ground, said it was easy to follow, wasn't having no difficulty at all looking for the deer. While he's blood trailing his deer, I had given him a text message and told him I needed some help trying to blood trail my deer.
Well, I've seen a lot of things in my lifetime, but never have I shot a deer with 3 arrows through the chest, back to back, and not be able to find the deer. Blood trailed him 200 yards, and I shot him in this graveyard right here. We're calling him the Ghost Buck.
After 24 hours and over a mile of blood trailing, I found my buck. Unfortunately, so do the buzzards. I can't use the meat. But at least we did find him, and he did die.
Good morning. Boy, this morning worked out perfect. I sat in this same tree yesterday evening and had that little half-rack buck come up underneath my stand, sniffing everywhere I walked. I've seen this buck in here several times, and I haven't been able to get him on film. I thought, well, I'll sit here in the morning. I've never sat here on a morning hunt. Thought I'd give it a try. And he come over there. He walked the trail that I sat on. I've been sitting in that tree 3 afternoons waiting on him to walk that trail. And he walked dead under the tree that I've been sitting in for an evening hunt. So this morning, I called him over here on this side. The bed area is behind me. And I've been seeing bucks walk this trail over here in the afternoons, and does. So I thought, well, I'll try this side, up closer to the top of the ridge. What I got is a bottom. It's a long, wide open pines, swag. Bottom, I guess what you call it. But anyway, them bucks, they travel up and down through there, going from one bed area over to another bed area. And this morning, I got him. He's dead over there. I'm going to give him some time to die, though, just to make sure, because these deer, they're tough. So you always want to get, even if you hear them crash and you know they're dead, you want to give them a little bit of time anyway. It's always a good idea. He'll still be dead when I go over there, even if it's an hour from now. I've already seen 2 more does walk through. I didn't even pick up the camcorder because, well, to tell you the truth, I was a little bit shivering and shaking from that buck, and I had my hands in my pocket trying to warm up. I love this stuff.
Now you can see he heard those two grunts right there. He's studying the area. You don't want to grunt no more at this point. It looked like he was going to continue on down the trail, so I did a bleat. And his response is he made a 90-degree turn off the trail and he's heading my direction. And right now I'm sizing this buck up, and I have determined that he is a mature buck. And if he gives me an opportunity, I'm going to take him. Now, in all honesty, I probably should have been at full draw and took that 30-yard shot, but I felt like he would come closer. Instead, he's walking away from me. So now I'm studying when should I grunt again. He's a little too close to me to grunt.
Yes, he's down right there. That's what I'm talking about. He is down right there. That was a bullseye. Now, I grunted that deer to him. He knows this is a bed area right here, and he knows that there's bucks chasing or cruising for does. So he is on the prowl, and that's when you can grunt to him the best. Dude, that worked perfect. It don't always work perfect, but this morning it worked perfect. Now I'm starting to shiver. It's only 18 degrees out here. Most folks stay home, cuddle up with their wives in bed, but I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I gotta get out here and chase these deer. Beautiful, beautiful hunt right there. That's awesome. I just got down out of my tree stand. I gave this deer an hour. Even though I think I heard the deer crash, and I think it was a really good shot, I'm always gonna give them an hour. Me and my son-in-law were talking about that the other day. You can never be too sure. These mature bucks are hard to kill. Sometimes they're tough.
Well, as you can see, I've got blood everywhere. It's spraying out. He ran through here, and I've got blood in pine straw. I can see it from 20 yards back. This deer shouldn't be too far up the trail. I heard him crash and I saw him fall. So I'm going to expect to find this deer in about 50 yards.
Well, sometimes things don't go quite like you plan it to go. I made a real good hit on that deer. I got really good blood for about 200 yards. He's made it up to the edge of a clear cut, and the deer has started walking, and the blood's clotting up. And I know this deer's dead. This deer gotta be dead. I got a friend with a dog. I'm fixing to head out. He called me a couple times, said if I ever need a track job, give him a call. He wants to put his dog on it.
Bottom of the hill or laid up on the side of one of the hills.
And they're not suspecting there's blood.
You know, they're tough.
Yeah, they are.
They're very tough animals. So we went 3.82 miles. Yesterday I shot a buck. I thought I made a really good hit on the buck. I'm back down here where the dog lost the deer, in the creek. Now this is a mature buck. Mature bucks are smart. I've actually blood trailed mature bucks that did this before with me, where they would get in a creek and they would run the creek 100 yards one direction or another, stay in that creek to evade predators. Deer are smart like that. So I'm going to walk these creek banks up and down several hundred yards anyway, and I'm basically going to be looking for a deer, hopefully a dead deer. Well guys, I have stomped this bottom to death several hundred yards both directions. I just stopped and I thought, boy, if I was a deer, if I was a mature buck, what would I do to get rid of a dog? And you know, I would run this creek. I would stay in the creek so that the dog couldn't get my scent. And I would try to circle around the dog. And I would try to stay downwind of the dog. About maybe 200 yards from here is about where the dog lost the scent of the deer. And I had just about gave up and told myself, man, I'm not going to find this deer. These bluffs are, I just got through talking about how steep these bluffs are. An old man like me ain't got no business down in these drainages. But
I thought, well, I'm fixing to figure out a way to get back to the truck. I'm gonna find me a gap that I think I can walk up and get out of this stuff. And I found my buck. He had the same idea. He was gonna circle back around and apparently get back to the area, where he lives. Get out of this creek bottom where this dog was chasing him and see if he couldn't get back to his area. And I'll be doggone if the deer ain't laying right where I was fixing to go up and walk. Laying right here behind me. Let's go look at him. There he lays. Just out of the creek. Boy, that's a big old body deer. And I do have an exit wound. Exit wound come out right behind the rib cage at that angle. Dude, that deer should not have gone as far as it did. This is ridiculous how far this deer's gone. And I'm gonna pack this deer out in that backpack right there. And I gotta go up this gorge right here to get out. This is the way that deer was gonna try to get out of this drainage. And it looks to me like it might be absolutely the easiest way. Had a dog on this thing yesterday trying to track it. The dog lost it in the creek. I come back down here this morning. I walked these creeks up and down these drainages, trying to figure out kind of what this deer might have done to escape. I knew this deer had to be dead. It was just a matter of me finding it. He's a good deer. Never give up. If you give up, you got no chance of finding them. The meat on this deer ain't gonna be spoiled because it got down below freezing last night. And so I'm gonna utilize the meat on this deer. Good hunt. Good morning, everybody. So far, it's turning out to be a pretty good morning. I've got deer being chased around by a little buck, which I hope will in turn get the attention of a bigger buck. So far I've had, I don't know, 10 or 12 deer at least around me. Been a good morning. Sun ain't even got above the trees yet. I'm gonna get quiet now. They're coming back. You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. When you're chasing the rut,
you're in the middle of it, it can be a real frustrating event. It's exciting, but it's also very frustrating, especially when you're trying to hunt deer with a bow and arrow. You're rifle hunting during the rut, you set up in a rut place like this right here, and there's a lot of chasing going on, boy, you got a really good chance of picking a spot and knocking a big old buck down when he comes within range. With a bow, it's a whole different story. These deer, they come in from all directions. They ain't really got no rhyme or reason as to what they're going to do next. They run these log roads, which you don't normally see them do. You saw them earlier, all of them were just walking up and down a log road. I think maybe they do that to try to stay off some of the trails that the bucks are checking. It's a game when you get into the rut trying to figure them out. Sometimes I don't even think they know what they're going to do. You know, when I was hunting up in Kentucky and right during the middle of the rut, one thing I noticed up there is a lot of times the buck deer, mature buck deer, would take those log roads and try to use them to cut the does off when they run them in and out of thickets. So, you know, sometimes setting up on a log road out in the woods in a rut area might be a good thing to do, or at least get close to them.
Good morning. Today has been interesting, to say the least. I've seen a lot of deer this morning. They've been all around me, behind me, in front of me, side of me, grunting, chasing. Had a little buck in here harassing all these does, but then later on there was a bigger buck. I didn't get him on film, but he was grunting and carrying on, and had all the other deer in here just sneaking around. There was a fawn come by earlier, probably trying to sneak up and try to relocate her mama that's being chased by that big buck. And everything got real quiet for about an hour. I mean, there was nothing. It was just dead calm. And the wind picked up just a little bit. And I heard that old beller grunt, you know, that you just get all excited about. And he did it multiple times up on top of the hill. I don't know if he's got a doe up there, and maybe he's locked down with her. I'm fixing to get down out of my tree stand, and I'm going to sneak up there as quiet as I can and ease back toward the truck. I got to go that way to get to the truck. Who knows, maybe I'll see something and get a shot on one. I mean, you can't shoot them if you don't try. So I don't know if y'all can tell or not, but my glasses is broke and I got them taped together. The last time I was down here, they broke, aggravating. One of the lens dropped all the way to the base of the tree. I had to climb all the way down and tape them together. I got home, I glued them together with epoxy, and they broke again. So I'm going this afternoon to get me some glasses. Can't see without them.